You're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam, streaming on iTunes, Google Podcasts, and at DCAUreview.com. Now, here's today's episode.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 64 of the DCAU Review. I am your host, Cal, and along with me, as he always is my good friend and good brother, Liam. Liam, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, glad to be here. We're via satellite this week. Scheduling didn't quite match up, but it's our final week of our Justice League month here of July. I can't believe July's already over, quite frankly, but here we are with our last two episodes to talk about, those being A Better World, Parts 1 and 2.
Yeah, so this is a very, very important storyline to the Justice League DCAU as a whole. There are threads and plot points that are laid out in this season, and in this episode specifically. We talked about it before, about some of the underlying plot points of season 2 that are laid out and then continue through regarding Hawkgirl and her star-crossed, ultimately, her spoiler alert for a almost 20-year-old cartoon, but spoiler alert, her double-crossed with the Justice League. Gasp!
Shocking.
Yeah, but this episode specifically deals with points that are then later played out in my favorite season of Justice League Unlimited, which deals with the Question and a whole bunch of other stuff, which we'll cover once we get to Justice League Unlimited. But Liam, this episode is an important one to the DCAU.
Yeah, it's funny because on the surface level, I think when it aired, it just kind of seemed like they decided to do sort of their own spin on like a crime syndicate type story. Mm-hmm. The evil version of the Justice League from an alternate dimension comes to, and they have a fight. But instead of doing the straight up, the Ultraman and Owlman and all that stuff, to make them sort of these, almost exact same mirror images, save for this one event, these, couple different events that set off this chain reaction that changed everything, and sort of how close maybe our heroes could come to this. Obviously, as you said, is a huge theme. It's the entire basis for the Cadmus story arc in that season of Justice League Unlimited. So hugely important, but yeah, as it stands on its own, it's very much just sort of this. It's a pretty straightforward story overall.
Yeah, we talked about that right before we went on the air, that it's it played out with a lot more happenstance, and we'll get into the actual story here. We always read the synopsis from IMDb for the episodes. Do you have that with you today?
I do, in fact. I will start with the Part 1 synopsis, and that synopsis reads as such. The Justice Lords, an alternate version of the Justice League, eliminate crime from their world through intimidation. But when Batman discovers a pathway to a parallel Earth, they decide to spread their brand of harsh justice across dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, we have the Part 2 synopsis, which reads as such. The League escapes from the Justice Lord's holding cells and heads to Arkham to rescue Hawkgirl. Batman appeals to his alternate self to turn against the other lords. The League crosses dimensions back to their Earth to retake control from the Justice Lords.
Okay. Yeah, those seem to be pretty accurate. Let's jump into plot to start. Liam, you laid out the plot there pretty well. And you even in your brief description before, talking about how it's very similar to a crime syndicate story from whether it's I guess Silver Age was when it came about, or then, of course, they've been used ad nauseum ever since. But since then, they did their own spin on it, and being just straight up, instead of being straight up evil bad guys that are trying to take over the Justice League universe or to wreak havoc. Like you said, there is a bit of nuance to it. They have experienced tragedy on their Earth, and President Luthor killing the Flash, which causes Superman to go off and decide that he can no longer stand by and just simply be the Boy Scout, as it were. which is interesting. We talked about this. Now, we had a similar, very eerily similar storyline way back in Dollar in the Bad episode Jar Brave New Metropolis. But this has a bit of nuance to it because it includes more than just Superman. And I don't know. So my general thoughts were there's a lot of stuff that doesn't add up completely. If these superheroes were exactly the superheroes that they were up until this point, where they deviate from this process, it's very odd to me that Batman and Wonder Woman both just go along with this. We talked about this actually in Brave New Metropolis, that Batman or any other superheroes would just stand by and allow Superman to take over without any sort of fight. And it's interesting because Superman kills Luthor within the first 2 minutes of this episode. Yes. And Batman's reaction is it had to be done.
Yes, it's very sudden. And I mean, they try to really hit home that like the Flash's death was, I guess, the moment where everyone kind of became more comfortable. But as far as we know, it wasn't like they killed all the other criminals and Luthor was the last one they were going after. Like, as far as we know, this is the first time Superman crosses that line, is murdering the president, who is very clearly sort of gone insane and is potentially preparing to, incite nuclear war or something. But and Superman feels he's left no choice. But yes, the fact that Batman and Wonder Woman are so willing to just go right along with it, and then we immediately jump. What is it? 2 years later?
Yeah,
and we see that that everyone's on board as far as the remaining six, with the exception of the Flash, who is dead on their Earth, and there's a little bit of like Hawkgirl and Green Lantern dialogue where they talk about how they don't like how the people are afraid of them and stuff like that, but kind of seems like people hopped on the fascist train real quick in this world.
Yeah, that was a little like plot holy to me. The reason for moving to our Justice League's universe 2 also didn't make a whole lot of sense.
Like they're bored, I guess.
Yeah, like, oh, we need to go help them. What? Why?
Right.
Like all of a sudden they go from our universe being this way. We need to teach them that this is the real, like, it's just a weird motivation. I don't know.
And I guess that sort of is set up in that, Batman has the line about how he's just been so bored with no crime that he creates this interdimensional gateway. And Superman is in what appears to be a loveless marriage with Lois Lane. And I actually really do like that scene with him and Lois, where she's just reading him the riot act, and he's giving her a lot of generic platitudes about, well, this is just temporary, and they're just it's to keep everyone safe and all that, and how still even with the face of him no longer being afraid to kill or being in charge of this fascist regime, she's still Lois Lane, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, I agree. That was good. There now, so I don't necessarily love the plot completely. It's important, like we already said, because it plays an important role later on. And we talked about when we did Brave New Metropolis. It's hard not to compare this to Brave New Metropolis because it's such a very similar storyline.
Yes,
but it's a fascinating concept of what happens when the most powerful beings on Earth decide that they're going to be the government, or they're going to take over, or they need to be in charge. And I just don't. There were some good scenes in this. Like you said, the Lois and Superman scene are good. The Batman and Batman scene are good, where Batman talks about when the Justice Lord's Batman talks about how an 8-year-old boy will never lose his parents again. And that causes, even though it's a ruse, Batman then decides to put down his weapons and surrender. Just great stuff, because it's Kevin Conroy talking to Kevin Conroy. You get double Kevin Conroy, double the cape movement, double the Kevin Conroy. Yes. Great, tremendous. You couldn't ask for more. But I think that while there are some strong scenes, that there is a lot of areas that you just, with under the critical lens, you leave just kind of like scratching your head and like, I don't understand, or that is just a little too convenient, or that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. For that reason, I gave plot 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I also gave Plot 6 out of 10.
Okay.
Yeah, some of the other notes are, Doomsday shows up. One of the most famous villains in the history of comics, certainly in the last 30 years. And he's just kind of he's like discount Darkseid almost.
He was a throw-in, and there's no explanation for why he shows up on Earth, where he came from, why he jumped. Like he's clearly from another planet. He's an alien. He comes encased in this asteroid, breaks out, can already speak perfect English, already knows what nuclear weapons are. Like, what?
And they retcon all of this later again in JLU to say that he was this Cadmus secret project, and he was they tried to send him into space on a rocket, and he damages the rocket. I don't know how the rocket turned into an asteroid, but I don't know how that works. But they try to explain that he was actually this experiment. But yeah, I mean, as it stands here, obviously we haven't watched those episodes yet, and just watching this, imagine being a first-time viewer watching this, and if you're familiar with Doomsday at all from the comics, it's just such a weird characterization of him, especially for the first time we've ever seen him in the DCAU. It was just very random, and then Superman lobotomizes him, and which we find out later on that he has apparently done to every criminal, at least all of the Arkham criminals, anyway. And then we're just kind of the part two is just the two teams fight, and then Lex Luthor has his we have some more science magic, and he uses his power disruptor to stop the Justice Lords, and that's officially the last we ever see of them.
Good thing he had that weapon already created, isn't it?
Yeah, that I guess. Yeah, they didn't even explain what the weapon was supposed to be. We see him building it, I guess, at the beginning of part one, but and then he gets to use it at the end here. And
of course, it's
it's important. The ending.
It's a power disruptor,
naturally, and it works on Hawk Girl, whose wings are just attached to her back. Did it disable the muscles she uses to flap her wings?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I feel like if you hold this one up to the sniff test, it's not a great ending. But obviously, it does end with Luthor being pardoned, and he mentions that he's thinking about getting into politics at the end of the episode. So obviously, we know that story's not done yet, as we've already alluded to. But yeah, overall, it's an all right story. Some of the themes that they approach are very interesting themes. But it's not. I don't think it's a great standalone story.
Agreed. All right, let's move on to music. I don't have a ton to say, other than I felt like music could have been an effective plot device if there was a really memorable Justice Lords theme. I know they had one, but we go back to one of my main issues with Justice League. And that was that they never really established a Justice League theme.
No.
You have the main title sequence, but that theme isn't really used as their theme in the show. And therefore, there isn't something memorable enough for you to remember that, this is the Justice League theme. So then maybe that's why they had an issue with establishing something that was as memorable or comparable in a Justice Lords theme. So I don't know. I wasn't impressed by the music for this episode.
Yeah, it very much hangs into the background. And as you mentioned, there's the Justice Lords theme, which sounded a little bit to me like it is the Justice League main theme, just sort of played in a different key. But yeah, it's pretty understated, and then really most of the music throughout both parts is pretty understated. You get a little bit of the Wonder Woman theme refrain that plays when she's fighting Justice Lord Wonder Woman, but yeah, for the most part, it's pretty underwhelming. So yeah, I gave music 5 out of 10.
Ha! So far, we are 2 for 2 on the exact scores here. And just a reminder for the listeners at home, we don't compare our scores. We used to. We no longer compare our scores.
Correct.
And therefore, and haven't for a very long time, but somehow, probably because we're related, we oftentimes will come up with similar scores, similar tastes, similar scores. Also 5 out of 10 for the reasons already stated. All right, let's go and talk about what I think is probably the most interesting part of the episode, Liam, which is animation and visuals. Coolest part about this episode is that the design team got to design 6 brand new costumes for 6 out of the 7 Justice Lords.
Yes.
We get to see... we didn't even talk about it, I don't think, in the episode in Justice for All, but Lex Luthor's classic Super Friend suit or Superpowers figure suit, which I guess was used in Super Friends at some point when they did the Superpowers action figure, like when they link those two together. But the classic green Lex Luthor suit is used in this. We have the visuals of really some unique designs, things that were obviously done to differentiate between who our heroes and our villain versions of the Justice League were. But there are some cool color schemes here. There's some things that I like, some things that I didn't necessarily care for about this. What were your thoughts on the Justice League redesign? Well, the Justice Lord's design.
I mean, I think all the designs are really striking. I think they did a pretty good job as far as just making them look different. I almost thought maybe they should have been a little more uniformed, like to really sell the fashy side of this.
Well, I felt like they did that they all have those like stripes on their wrists.
That's true. That's true. That's a good point.
I mean, I don't disagree with you that they're, I don't know, they don't necessarily look like, I mean, they're unique, but they do have that uniform, like striped military, whatever type looking thing for it. But they could have been more uniform. Sure.
I guess I would just say that's probably one of the things I would give credit to Brave New Metropolis for Dollar and Bad Episodes Jar is that I really liked the look of their, dictator Superman in that show. And, because it was so militant and to the point, and these are still very much superhero outfits. And I guess this isn't quite the same because we see Superman talking to the president. So I guess this hasn't been a total, there still are at least sort of puppet governments around. So maybe that's part of it too, is they're still they still feel they're doing the same thing they were doing. They were just taking it to the next step. So these aren't quite they aren't, Superman is not the president of the world or whatever when we find this episode, even though very clearly, all the nations of the world are sort of, bowing to them.
Right. Yeah. That's where the nuance of these Justice Lords characters come in, is that, and I almost wish they had been completely evil, because at that point, I don't know. He killed Luthor, but other than that, and obviously being a fascist, not good, that's not a good thing. So maybe I've answered my own question there, but they don't really allude to there being a whole lot of issues. Everything kind of looks like it's good. Like,
it's kind of when you start to squint at it, like when, the two Batmans see the guy getting arrested for complaining about his bad service at a restaurant. Like
he was
sort of, yeah, he was kind of a jerk, but he deserved to be arrested. There's certainly certain cleanness to it, the utopian vibe to it that I think they wanted to present. They didn't present the Justice Lords as we said as straight up evil. These are people that went through certain traumas and that informed their decisions, and they feel like they're still doing the same job they were doing before. They're just sort of taking it to the next level. Right.
Yeah, that's fair.
I really visuals though.
Yeah, sorry, back to the visual part of things. I really liked the designs. I appreciate the fact that they adapted the Batman Beyond Bat onto the Justice Lord's Batman. It looks very much like the Batman Beyond costume, except for the cape. Superman's costume, I like that the gloves have been added. That was a cool touch. I wish they had done away with the cape. That would have been, I think, like you said, having that look from Brave New Metropolis versus this one. Brave New Metropolis costume all day. Like, taking that one 10 out of 10 times over the Justice Lord's costume. That's not to say that this one doesn't look cool. The white, though, leads you to believe that there's like, oh, well, there's he still sees him. Maybe the point is he still sees himself as a superhero or as the hero of the story, and that's the point. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into that, and they just like the white. It was a different way to go. Green Lantern, this is the first time we see Green Lantern bald.
Yes.
No explanation as to why he decided to start shaving his head, but he's bald here, which of course he would adapt later on our world or in the DCAU world in Justice League Unlimited. We get Shira in her helmet that she would ultimately use in Starcrossed.
Yes, it's more Thanagarian, it appears.
Thanagarian warrior helmet. And Wonder Woman decided to grow a mullet. Without any explanation.
Yeah, she
sure has a Donna Troy vibe going on too with her costume.
A little bit, yeah.
Wonder Girl, I guess maybe more Wonder Girl. Yeah, like Teen Titans 80s. Not the black costume that she had, but like that.
Yeah, like the George Perez era, new Teen Titans.
Exactly. So yeah, there's some good things. I felt like Martian Manhunters is just, I don't know. It's kind of weird.
That big collar. I thought it was a hood at first, but it's just a big collar.
He went full big collar on I don't know. Martians, they don't read each other's minds because they can't and they don't, which doesn't make any sense. And also they wear big, gigantic collars. They're all about the collars.
That's what we know.
They can create any sort of clothing out of their skin, but they choose giant collars.
Maybe that's like high fashion on Mars.
Possibly. One other thing that I didn't mention I thought was a cool Easter egg was maybe plot or just a cool Easter egg was the code that Batman used to break himself out. Did you catch that?
Yes, it was 1939, right?
Which would
that was
what to those at home that wouldn't catch that.
That would be the first appearance of the Dark Knight in Detective Comics number 27.
Oh, so you mean we're coming up on the 80th anniversary of that?
Yes, very soon in the month of September. I wonder if we'll do anything to mark that.
I don't know. Time will tell, I guess. But yeah, so that was a neat little Easter egg. Other than that, okay, back to scores. Let's get to this. Visuals. Sorry, I got off on a tangent. Visuals, very good, very strong. I think that for what they needed to do, it was good to see some of the classic Batman villains back again. Poison Ivy, Joker, Scarface was in there too.
I love that the puppet had the lobotomy scar.
That was pretty good. I feel like there may have been a commentary where they talked about that. Or something.
And I remember on the commentary they also mentioned that all of the robot Superman dialogue was ripped from actual Superman dialogue from season 1.
Tremendous. That's great. That's really, really good. Yeah.
The only other visual thing I wanted to mention is we get to see, I think, as far as I know, for the first time, we get to see Wonder Woman throw her tiara.
Oh.
And it's awesome. I geeked out. I had forgotten about that. And when I saw it, I was like, that's cool.
Yeah, that was a cool moment. I had forgotten about that. Yeah, I gave my final score for visuals and animation a strong 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm right in that ballpark, 7 out of 10. So completely different this time.
Completely different. First, disagreement alarm, maybe? Yeah, definitely.
That thing's getting dust. That thing's getting some dust on it. It's been a while.
Yeah, that's fine. The less I have to add in when I'm editing, the better. All right, let's move on to our final category, Liam, which is going to be our voice actors. We have a strong cast of returning characters. We also have a couple of the old classics in minor roles, like Mark Hamill makes appearance as Joker and the guy that gets arrested for complaining about his food.
True. Diane Pershing as Poison Ivy.
Yeah. We also had, of course, Dana Delaney has a couple of lines as Lois Lane. But main cast is pretty much just our normal cast. Was there anybody else that I missed that was Clancy Brown has a pretty big role in this episode, obviously.
Sure. We had Michael Jai White playing Doomsday, who people may know as the live action Spawn from 1997. And also he currently plays the Bronze Tiger on the Arrowverse shows. So
there you go. Did he die in that? I feel like he died.
He died, but he's back. He was on like the most recent season, so I think they said like he faked his death.
He's back, baby.
People don't die on super. There's multiple Earths and stuff. I don't know, but he's back anyway.
Someone's Earths.
Yes, but yeah. So other than Michael Jai White, though, and as you mentioned, some of our returning actors from other shows, it's pretty much just everybody else in the cast, with the exception of Michael Rosenbaum, is pulling double duty as both their Justice League part and their Justice Lord part.
I would say
it's double duty kind of.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's just it's just sort of double duty right down the list of the main seven, with the exception of Michael Rosenbaum.
Yeah, I would say that the best performance goes to Kevin Conroy. No shocker there. He is really great. And as I already mentioned before, that scene between Justice Lord's Batman and Our Earth's Batman is really, really good. And they have some snippy dialogue as they ride along in the Batmobile later on. And every time, and even when he's first captured and they're kind of going back and forth, there's a good bit of dialogue there between the two of them. Really good stuff, and really appreciate it. I think that to me, the weakest performance is going to have to go to somebody that was featured the most, who we actually gave some kudos to the last couple of weeks, and that was George Newburn. I thought I did not appreciate his performance this time. I felt like he was robotic, and not just when he was playing the robots. I felt like there was a real lack of emotion at times, and he needed to be a little more emotional in the scenes that he played Justice Lord Superman, especially if he's trying to, I get it, he needed to be a more sinister version of Superman, and I think that comes across at some times, but I think there was other times where, like the scene with Lois, where he needed to, I don't know. I feel like there should have been more emotion in expressing why he was defending what he was doing, and it just came off a little more robotic to me. Other than that, I think everybody else does a fairly good job. So I gave voice acting a very strong, actually, based on Kevin Conroy's performance alone. I give it an 8 out of 10. What about you?
Yeah, I went 9 out of 10. I mostly really enjoyed this. I did think that George Newburn was not at his best here, but I would say that his one line at the end when it's revealed that he tells real Superman tells him that Luthor's getting a pardon in exchange for helping them, and he just kind of loses it and yells, "Everything he does from this point on is on you." And I thought that was a really good line, and I thought it was delivered really well. But yeah, I agree. There could have been a little bit more nuance in it, and again, that's sort of maybe part of, because of the way the plot was structured and just kind of moved from set piece to set piece so quickly. But yeah, as you've already gone over, the Kevin Conroy scene is great. I think my favorite part is, while standing in complete shadow, Justice Lord Batman is lecturing Justice League Batman about needing to step into the light. Which goes into visuals as well. But I thought Kevin Conroy's delivery of that was excellent as well. And then yeah, I liked we get a little bit more of the Green Lantern Hawkgirl budding romance in this two-parter, and we see that both in the Justice Lord versions and in the Justice League versions, with obviously Green Arrow being very concerned for her as she's been injured and hesitates to attack the Justice Lord version of her at the end of the episode. So good character development there. I thought Phil LaMarr and Maria Canales did a nice job, and then I think Michael Rosenbaum is really good as well. I thought that was maybe the best part of it was the back and forth at the end between Justice Lord Superman and Michael Rosenbaum and Michael Rosenbaum's Flash, as he's the Flash is sort of telling him, like, I'm the last piece of your conscience. You can't kill me. And Justice Lord Superman just like, yeah, I can.
Yeah, that was strong. You're right. I think Rosenbaum really came into his own. We haven't had too many episodes other than maybe the Dr. Destiny episode where he's had a lot of time or opportunity to flex that muscle. And I think you're right. He does a good job in this episode.
And the interaction between Flash and Justice Lord Batman at the beginning of part 2 is also really good. And I do just love the idea that, of all people, the Flash is the one who managed to outsmart Batman. That's a pretty cool little bit there.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so I think that brings us to our final scores, Liam.
Indeed it does, and my final score is a pretty strong 27 out of 40, so kind of a middle-of-the-road episode, which maybe I didn't expect as far as scores go anyway.
Yep, and because our scores were almost exact, except in the final 2 categories in which I was one below you on one and you were one below me in the other, our final scores are exactly the same, which is a score of 27 out of 40 for me as well. So we always talk about our rewatchability. I think that this is a no-brainer. This is a must-watch based on the fact that it's such a pivotal part of Justice League Unlimited. If you are watching this through, if you plan on watching Justice League Unlimited, then you need to watch this episode just so that you understand. I mean, they go into depth as to what that is, but if you want to know why the question is so obsessed with Superman is Superman is Superman is Superman, then you need to watch this episode to understand why.
Yes, it's incredibly integral to the foundation of that, of really almost the entire rest of the DCAU from here out. I will just make a note: if you, as a listener, are interested in a follow-up to this Justice Lord story, because we never got like a direct follow-up in the cartoon, the Kyle Higgins' Batman Beyond 2.0 comic that came out in maybe 3 or 4 years ago now, did an entire arc that was basically the idea of the Justice Lords coming back and fighting the future Justice League, the Justice League Unlimited, with with Terry sort of at the main at the center of it all, and dealing with the return of the Justice Lord. So I would recommend that. If you just, I think it was just called Batman Beyond 2.0 Justice Lord Beyond or something like that. So look into that if you're interested in a little bit of a follow up. I know it's probably not official DCAU canon, but it is a pretty good story, and it's clear that when it was made, it was done by people who had a great deal of respect and love for the DCAU continuity and wanted to tell a good story. So definitely recommend checking that out by Kyle Higgins if you get a chance.
Good times. Good thoughts, Liam. That's why he's the DCAU review Twitter guru, because all week long he's putting out stuff like that on our Twitter page. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, by the way. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Follow us on Twitter at DCAU review. You'll get updates for when the new episodes are coming up. Updates, Liam, I know you have already announced it on Twitter, but for the listeners that haven't followed us on Twitter, why don't you tell them what we're going to be doing for the month of August?
Yes, for the month of August, as I've announced on Twitter, as you mentioned, we will be covering Batman Beyond. We're going back there. It's been a while. It's been almost, I think, over 6 months now. We did some at the beginning of the year, but it's been a while. We're picking up right where we left off, just like with Batman the Animated Series. We do Batman Beyond in order. So we're going to be finishing up Season 1 and I guess breaking into the first couple episodes of Season 2. I'm excited.
Super excited about that. As we mentioned when we covered those episodes back in February or March, whenever that was, it is the 20th anniversary of Batman Beyond. Always cool to dig into the futuristic Batman, different vibe, if you will, regarding Batman and the older, of course, Bruce Wayne mentoring Terry McGinnis. And of course, we're going to get some of those cool rogues that we haven't been introduced to yet. We get another Blight episode in there that we're going to cover. So very, very excited. Curare is coming up. We're very excited. A lot of great, cool original villains that they've created that we're going to get to cover in the next month or so. So very excited about that. All right. Well, that wraps us up. Thank you for listening. I'm Cal. And we will
And I'm
talk
Liam.
to you on next week's episode of the DCAU Review.
Bye-bye.